All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. If you've ever taken a step back and just kind of wondered how you actually stack up against everyone else around you, well, today we are pulling back the curtain on the modern American dream. We're going to look directly at the stark, unfiltered median data of what the average person earns, spends, owes, and saves. And look, this isn't based on anecdotal stories or guesswork. This is highly revealing recent data. Our source material today breaks down this reality not to make you feel bad, but to serve as a very real, tangible financial report card. Think of it like peeking behind the curtain to truly understand the landscape we are all navigating, so you can finally figure out the actual rules of the game.
$293. Yeah, that shockingly low number, it's not a typo. And what's wild is, it's definitely not a worst-case scenario either. It actually represents the median monthly income generated from retirement savings for Americans aged 65 and older. This figure comes straight from applying the standard 4% safe withdrawal rule to $88,000, which happens to be the actual median retirement balance for that exact age group. Just let that sit with you for a second. The middle-of-the-pack result, the grand reward for literally decades of waking up, commuting, and working, yields just under $300 a month. When you really internalize that, the reality of the average financial trajectory becomes incredibly, frighteningly clear.
And honestly, that brings us to the most crucial question of all. Consider this your personal financial wake-up call to evaluate your own scoreboard. Are you, right now, on this exact same path without even realizing it? Are your everyday habits leading you directly toward that median outcome? The data we're exploring today is designed to serve as a measuring stick. It's here to show you exactly where the bar is set, so you can make the active, conscious choice to step right over it.
To figure out where you stand, here is our roadmap for the explainer today. 1. Earnings versus spending gap. 2. The credit card debt trap. 3. The net worth illusion. 4. A scary retirement reality. And finally, number 5, how to beat the average.
Okay, starting off with Section 1, Earnings versus Spending Gap, the daily squeeze before the month even begins.
Let's start with the fundamental math problem that really sets up everything else we're going to talk about. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics data, the median full-time worker earns about $52,000 a year. But as we all know, after federal and state taxes, Social Security, and Medicare, that individual take-home pay shrinks down to roughly $3,000 a month. Now stack that against the average monthly spend on just the bare necessities. Housing is roughly $2,100, transportation is $1,110, and food is $800. Those three line items alone, they cost nearly $4,100. So you wake up on the first of the month, and before you've bought a single coffee, paid for a streaming subscription, or handled the medical copay, you are mathematically in the red. The psychological weight of this squeeze is just massive.
And unfortunately, the squeeze doesn't stop there, because the total average household spending actually eclipses $6,500 a month. Remember that $4,100 we just talked about? That didn't even include healthcare, clothing, basic entertainment, or, replacing a broken fridge. When the total outlay hits roughly $78,500 a year, it forces a situation that the source aptly describes as the dual income trap. It's essentially a financial treadmill where having two incomes isn't some luxury for building extra wealth. It's a strict, undeniable requirement just to keep the lights on and the engines running. It leaves absolutely zero room for error.
Moving on to Section 2, the credit card debt trap. This is how Americans are plugging that massive spending gap.
So, when income simply doesn't stretch far enough, how is the average person keeping up appearances? Well, on paper, an average FICO score of 715 looks pretty solid, right? It sounds like financial responsibility. But the source data shows this fascinating myth versus reality. Lurking right beneath that supposedly healthy score is an average household credit card debt of roughly $9,000. So having a 715 FICO score looks great, but sometimes it just means you are really, really good at being in debt. And to be totally clear, we aren't talking about a mortgage or student loans here. This is $9,000 spent on consumer goods, stuff that's already depreciating, gathering dust in a closet, or has been entirely discarded.
Now maybe you're thinking you can just invest your way out of consumer debt? Well, to quote the source material directly, that math does not work out in your favor, my friend. Paying 24% interest on consumer debt essentially guarantees financial loss. It completely neutralizes any potential 7 or 8% gains you might magically make in the stock market. I mean, think about it. At a 24% interest rate, you are effectively taking $2,100 a year and literally lighting it on fire. And that's just in interest payments, before you even touch a single penny of that $9,000 principal. The source makes it abundantly clear. Paying off that credit card is the equivalent of getting a guaranteed 24% return on your money, completely risk-free. No stock market can promise you that.
All right, Section 3, the net worth illusion. Let's strip the data of the middle-class wealth mirage. Let's actually look at the benchmark so you can realistically gauge where you stand against your peers. For folks under 35, the median net worth is $39,000. Moving up to the 35 to 44 bracket, it jumps to $135,000. And for the 45 to 54 group, it reaches $247,000. Use these numbers as a springboard to see your position, right? Not as a reason to feel bad. However, as we dig a little deeper into these specific figures, there is a massive, defining caveat hidden in the data that completely shatters the illusion.
So, according to Federal Reserve data, the overall median household net worth is $192,700. But wait, strip away the house, and that median net worth plummets to under $60,000. A huge chunk of that higher number is entirely tied up in home equity, driven by the massive housing run-up over the last few years. It exposes what the source perfectly calls a middle-class wealth mirage. Without the house, there's a terrifying lack of actual purchasing power behind those six-figure net worth stats.
And here is exactly why that matters. The number on your financial scoreboard only counts if it has liquidity. If your car breaks down tomorrow or you have an unexpected medical emergency, you can't literally chop off a piece of your roof to pay the mechanic, right? Selling a house can take weeks or even months. Actual financial flexibility requires assets that are quickly saleable, like cash in the bank or index funds. Without liquidity, you might look wealthy on paper, but you remain completely financially stuck in reality.
Which brings us to Section 4, a scary retirement reality, facing the financial cliff.
When the income finally stops coming in, what is actually left to sustain you? Let's walk through this timeline together. The average American actually stops working at 61, but full Social Security benefits don't kick in until age 67. That is a dangerous, terrifying 6-year gap of relying entirely on your own savings before the full safety net even attempts to catch you. And with life expectancies pushing another 19 to 21 years past age 65, the money you slowly draw down during that gap has to magically stretch for decades.
And you've got to let this statistic sink in for a second. 1 in 4 Americans have absolutely $0 saved for retirement. Literally $0. After a lifetime of working, commuting, and stressing over bills, 25% of the population is completely, 100% dependent on a government check just to survive.
And for those who did manage to save the median amount, well, we return to the painful math from the very beginning of our explainer. That median $88,000 nest egg yields just $293 a month. Add in the average Social Security payout of $2,071, and your total monthly retirement income is just $2,364. Try to vividly picture how fast that disappears. Once you pay rent or property taxes, buy groceries, and cover Medicare premiums, there is almost zero room for enjoyment or comfort in the final decades of life. Finally, Section 5. How to beat the average. Let's talk about escaping the median trap. Thankfully, the bar is set surprisingly low, which means stepping over it is entirely within your control. The very first step is recognizing exactly why the average savings rate of 5% is basically a mathematical dead end. Saving 5% might feel like you're doing the responsible thing, but it is virtually impossible to reach escape velocity with that number. Financial planners advise putting away 10 to 15% specifically for retirement alone, not for a new car, not for a summer vacation, but strictly to secure your long-term survival. At just a 5% saving rate, your short-term spending is actively cannibalizing your future. So here is your blueprint for escape. Step 1. Take an absolute axe to that 24% credit card debt immediately. Eliminate it entirely. Step 2. Ramp up your savings well beyond that meager 5% average. Step 3. Realize that time is your absolute greatest advantage and start investing today. Step 4. Put your capital into broad-based index funds and hard assets. And Step 5. Use those assets to relentlessly protect your purchasing power from inflation. That way, as the cost of everyday goods naturally skyrockets, your net worth inflates right alongside it.
Look, the numbers we've explored today, they aren't meant to guilt you. They are the ultimate reality check. The median American is broke, stressed out, and facing a massive retirement cliff. The scoreboard simply doesn't lie, but it is entirely up to you how you play the rest of the game. You now have the unfiltered truth of exactly what happens when you just follow the crowd. So look at your numbers tonight, check your liquidity, and ask yourself a really honest question. Are you going to settle for the average, or are you finally ready to break the cycle?